What we see at crime scenes normally only tells part of the picture.
What evidence was created or left behind at the crime scene, witnesses in these cases, in the smiley face.
And what we would like to do is get into the mind of the killer.
To look at this case psychologically and behaviorally.
To understand the psychological dimension that, if you want, underlies all of these behaviors. And so we can start understanding patterns that go over and beyond what we see.
And try to paint a picture as to who this individual is.
My name is Lawrence Kobolinski. I'm chairman of the Department of Sciences and a professor of forensic science at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City.
My name is Gabrielle Salfati, and I'm a professor in investigative psychology. I'm also the director of the Investigative Psychology Research Unit.
Lou Schlesinger, I'm a professor of forensic psychology. I've also been a practicing clinical forensic psychologist for 35 years. So I bring together not only an academic background in terms of research, but a practical background in terms of clinically evaluating these people as well.
My name is Joseph Polini. I am the deputy chairperson of the Law Police Science Department at John Jay College. I am a former lieutenant commander of the Cold Case Homicide Squad of the New York City Police Department.
You need to let my team finish what they started.
Teresa, no offense, but you guys aren't even close to catching this guy. First set of eyes got to be a good idea.
What do you know about the case?
Not much. It's a serial killer, 15 victims, including your wife and child. I can imagine your pain.
Well, offender profiling is really a very simple method to understand.
It's really how we apply psychological principles to criminal investigations.
In profiling, you want to look at the behavior and reverse the process.
Where we specifically focus on analyzing the behavior of the offender at the crime scene.
So as personality predicts behavior, behavior then reflects personality.
How did you figure it out? That it was Esther and Nilda?
When we first met with them, they were masking shame, not sadness. And who likes lizards? Cold-blooded people.
Lizards.
Well, the whole point of doing profiling or any kind of analysis of this sort, the usefulness is if it's something that we can predict.
So look at what the individual did and then try to understand what type of individual would behave in this way.
The type of weapon that they use, the type of behavior they engage in, the type of victim, all the different components.
Interesting, though. 3 different methods of killing. What is that? The bodies have been arranged as well, not in an ostentatious way, but there's a definite aesthetic at work here.
And once we find what pattern that offender is displaying, we will associate that with a specific type of offender in terms of their characteristics.
It will help us paint the picture of what the suspect may look like, his background, his age, his marital background, his social skills, and so forth.
Yeah, it's a truly complicated maniac we're dealing with.
What was interesting was seeing that kind of professional perspective on what we as writers have seen as a kind of fictional character, to see how far the character fits a genuine archetype of this kind of guy.
Just got back the forensics report. Both victims were bludgeoned with the same object. Identical wood fibers were found in both their wounds.
Sounds like the caveman.
I don't think he has a patent on killing with a 2x4.
MO is really a police term, means method of operation, modus operandi. It's the technique, the conscious technique of how somebody goes about committing a crime. MO is learned behavior and can change, and changes all the time.
And it develops just like any career develops, and that, to me, is one of the nice, scary things about this character, is that, as with any successful man, as he rolls along, he gets more and more complex and more deep, and there are more wrinkles in the story there.
And yes, we know from real cases that when certain things happen in the series that the offender reacts to, they will then completely change their MO to adapt to the situation.
Same with serial killers. They may start killing people outdoors, realize that's too high risk, somebody could come upon them, somebody could drive up, then they decide to kill people indoors.
His career is happening in real time. There's a history there. Every time he does something, he's learning, just as Patrick Jane is learning about Red John. Red John is learning and developing and changing as the years go by.
And that is really where psychology comes in, because what you're trying to understand is what stays intrinsic to the person, and something that follows them, if you want, from crime to crime to crime, versus the behaviors that they engage in that change.
The systems flagged your 2 murders as the reemergence of a killer known as the caveman.
I remember him. He bludgeoned his victims with a wooden club. That was 10 years ago.
Indeed, but the similarities between his victims and the victims in this case are statistically identical.
One of the things that academics like to do is to classify serial killers. The fact of the matter is that if you're looking at 100 different serial killers, you're going to get 100 different kinds of individual.
Bodies are left in waste sites and scrapyards, and the victims are unknown to each other. This is classic caveman.
Well, at least you're wrong with conviction.
They're all different. They have different motivations. They perform their crimes somewhat differently.
Now, if you don't understand how individuals kill in a series behave, you might reach the incorrect conclusion that it's 2 individuals because their MO has changed or evolved.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
No, it's a coincidence.
That's what I said.
No such thing as a coincidence, not with him.
What are y'all talking about? Who's him?
Red John. He's a serial killer. This is his style of cutting.
It's strange, I'll give you that. You're jumping to conclusions.
It's really hard to characterize Red John because he has so many similarities to different known serial killers.
There are people like the son of Sam, which is another individual who would target specifically young females, young attractive females.
There's contract killers like Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, who killed people for a very specific motive, money.
It's very important that he goes beyond what we know of as a serial killer, because those guys, like I say, get caught. This one doesn't.
After you've killed a number of times, you gain comfort with killing, and therefore you can switch your behavioral pattern. So it's not at all uncommon for a serial sexual murderer to then kill somebody for a very specific adaptive reason, to get money, to implicate somebody else, because they've gained this level of comfort.
And so we have to be very careful with profiling and, take from it what might help in the case.
Anytime a profile takes precedence in a police investigation, you're headed for absolute disaster.
But even if we were able to establish a link between the victims, it doesn't exclude the caveman from being the killer. It merely expands the modeling paradigm.
We always start from the base of what is objective and measurable.
What transpired at the crime scene? How was the victim assaulted? Were they stabbed? Were they slashed? What was left behind?
And if there's new information that emerges in the course of the investigation, you change the profile. You don't eliminate that information because it's inconsistent with the profile.
Red John, like many serial killers, both wants to remain hidden, but also wants to attract attention to himself, and it's that conflict that gets them caught, unless they're very clever.
We know that people get caught because they leave evidence. Victims are evidence as well.
We have Gregory Tannen, Caucasian, male, 43, single. Burn marks here indicate that the victim was subdued with a stun gun, standard civilian model by the look of it.
Red John is one of those expressive serial killers who want people to examine what he's doing and understand what he's doing, and he leaves signs that give you clues.
You need to understand something. Red John doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't leave clues. If you have new evidence, it's because he wants you to have it. The question isn't what does it mean, it's why did he give it to you?
It's important to remember that Red John thinks about his effect on other people far more than, or as much as other people think about Red John. So anything he does is done with a great deal of thought for effect.
And I think what's really important is to actually take a step back and simply look at what's he doing. Once we start understanding what it is that he's doing, who he's targeting, and how that behavior is evolving over time, then we can connect with psychological theories that we know about that might help us explain.
Now, with respect to the smiley face, that to me does not seem to be a ritualistic action, but it's more a message or a symbol.
The smiley face that Red John uses is a kind of brand. It's a coat of arms. It's advertising.
It's a sign of dread for anybody to see that, and that's what he wants. That's what Red John wants.
It's this fantastic contradiction in itself. It's like this sort of terrifying concept, but a smiling face. Scary, like clowns, sort of, you know?
He wanted everyone to know that this was his specific crime, and any future crimes would be credited towards him.
It reminds me of Charlie Manson. That serial killer left behind at the crime scenes, or at least his cult followers left behind messages in blood.
Our subject, Red John, is an organized individual. He apparently is very intelligent. He tends to be charismatic, where he can lure people in to assist him. He seems to be sexually capable in his association with the blind lady.
You two are lovers.
Yes. His knowledge of technology is tremendous. He somehow manages to find out information very quickly, so his surveillance techniques, including the people who surveil for him, is very advanced.
Camera, microphone, transmitter.
He's trying to put people off their guard, trying to wrong foot the people who are pursuing him. The more kind of false messages you throw out, the more you put down false trails, the safer he is. So anything he does should always be looked at in that respect.
When you say Dr. Joe in New Hampshire, do you mean D-R-J-O-E-N-H?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
It's clear that he's got some affiliation or association with law enforcement.
The fact that Red John had access to high-profile prisoners.
He's got privileged information. He can literally place people into CBI.
There's also a connection that was made between Sheriff Dumar and the fact that his father was a police officer and connected to Red John.
You recall a man by the name of Orville Tanner?
Red John's accomplice in his first killing. He was caught.
That's the man. I'm his son, Dumar.
If you are a very, very clever psychopath, as Red John is, you will both be attracted to and attractive to people in law enforcement who are not as sane as they should be.
And Red John, a friend of my father's. And a close friend of mine, I'm proud to say.
The situation with the director reciting poetry.
And when thy little heart doth wake, then the dreadful night shall break.
Which was from the same poet as Red John recited to Patrick Jane.
Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night.
William Blake, I believe.
And also the last thing that Todd Johnson did before he expired after being burnt in custody, he also recited similar words from the same poet.
Tiger, tiger.
Red John's obsession with Blake, it's an affirmation for him that what he's doing is not evil.
Before Patrick Jane became involved in the case, there were at least 8 women killed by Red John, which suggests, at least initially, that these are serial sexual murders.
They may well be motivated by a sexual component, but we don't see it.
You're not going to find intercourse in most of these cases because the violence is going to take the place of it.
The victim here is not important at all. They are just an object to be played with.
And in these cases, it seems that they were intricately planned, and he had not almost total control, complete control over the victim.
You're really looking at a serial murderer that we associate with someone who objectifies his victims. But he does everything in order to distance himself psychologically and physically from the victim. He will attack them from behind with a blunt weapon. He will stun them so that there's absolutely no interaction with the victim. And he will only engage with the victim's body after death. So there is really no component there that indicates any, at least, interaction with the victim.
In my opinion, he's sort of like a power thrill-seeker type person.
He's spending a great deal of time at the crime scene, exposing himself to risks for apprehension, which is a message, I think, to just how in control, how dominant, and how powerful he actually is.
Oh, my God.
We know that he's not only narcissistic and a performer, what she is, but he seems to be incredibly grandiose.
But he's going out of his way now to intimidate people and show people that he is still more powerful.
And that is what Red John is about. He's all about the control, all about the power. He sees the view from his own eyes, and other people just have to fit in as pawns. Even his victims are just pawns. Even his associates, if you want to call them cult associates, are just pawns for his own methods, for his own behaviors.
You are nothing to him but a useful object. He is not a good man.
He certainly is a complex combination of a number of different traits, but when Patrick Jane got involved, it's certainly all of the attributes of a cult leader.
He is a great manipulator of other people, which is, I think, probably somewhat rare amongst serial killers. Here is a guy who has developed into something of a cult leader, and that requires a great deal of profound insight into other people's psychology and a great deal of charisma and the desire and the need to pull people in.
You are so wrong. He is a very good man. He's on a mission of love and enlightenment.
We know that he has brought out philosophical musings.
Without death, there's no life. Without darkness, there's no light.
Bringing out this type of philosophy is very common in cult leaders.
And he's using different people to achieve that process, and he's going about it in different ways.
To sense their weaknesses and their desires and focus on those things and twist them the way you want to. That aspect of the character is probably his greatest strength.
It appears to me there's an evolution that's taken place in his killing.
Serial killers do not evolve in a very linear way. These are very dynamic situations.
When you're looking at the beginning of Red John's series, and then as he progresses through time towards what's happening at the end of what we've seen, the first thing that you will think is that there is a tremendous inconsistency going on there.
He's gone from somebody interested in sexual activities and living out his fantasies, and now he's in this game with Patrick Jane.
His gradual transformation is absolutely by design, and like I say, I think in anyone's career, if you're successful at it, as he feels he is, you grow and learn and you get larger ambitions.
I believe also that he may be changing his method of operation because he has first-hand knowledge of what the police are doing and the steps they're taking to try to capture him.
It's very likely that one of you people here in this room is the murderer. You know who you are.
And so he's evolving from this person who's very close, who doesn't want any contact, and his communication patterns are very distant. He draws a smiley face, but that's it, to someone who then recruits people and engages with those people.
They have evolved where Patrick Jane comes into the picture and becomes a competitor in a sense. What's happened is there's become a predator-prey relationship here, a competition, a chess game.
Whoever set the fire works for Red John. He was a member of Red John's network, and another member of his network killed him to stop him from talking. But here's the thing. Red John doesn't know I know that. For the first time, I have the advantage.
I ran Red John through the modeling program. You might find some of the data sets useful.
The best way for us to understand the progression of the behaviors throughout the series is to look at each one of these cases in time, starting with the girlfriend of Red John, and then Red John engaging in a number of behaviors in a certain number of cases that really relate back to his basic MO. This is the kind of analysis that we normally do statistically to try to understand what differentiates crimes, but also what ties them together. And very often we can actually use this to link crimes by focusing on each individual component. When Red John first started committing crimes, in the lower right-hand corner of this plot, what you found were all his crimes that had that general MO. They were women in their own homes. So he started off as an offender who was, again, very distant, very contained. Then there was a critical moment where things changed, and that is when Patrick Jane went on air and talked about Red John and what he thought about him.
He's an ugly, tormented little man, a lonely soul. Sad, very sad.
Nobody has an opinion about Red John because Red John is the one in control. He's the one who leads everyone in his mind. And so he reacts, and he kills his wife and child. Then he goes back and kills another number of victims using his general MO. But as you can see, the reaction crimes here are very different from everything else that he's done to date. And you see, there's a pattern. Essentially, we can divide it into 4 quadrants. In the lower right-hand corner are the victims that are killed using the main Red John MO. The profiles in the top right-hand corner were victims based on a reaction to a particular situation. In the upper left-hand corner were victims killed by Red John associates. In the lower left-hand corner are Red John associates killed by Red John himself. So there's almost a progression from general MO to reaction crimes to associates getting involved, and then Red John killing those associates to remove the final link in the evidence chain. So it was very interesting to see that crossover between consistency and inconsistency happening, to try to really understand what is going on underneath all of this and what might be motivating him.
Look at the toenails.
Yeah, I see them.
Painted in her own blood, just like my wife. This is Red John, and he wants to make sure I was on this case.
Painting the toes was a message directly to Patrick Jane. Not only did I have complete power over your wife and your child, but I actually did something very intimate, to take their blood and paint the toenails of his wife. Not only is it a slap on the face, but it tells Patrick Jane, I could have done anything. I could stay here as long as I want.
But now he introduces another way of communicating with the world, and he leaves a letter.
Dear Mr. Jane, I do not like to be slandered in the media, especially by a dirty, money-grubbing fraud. If you were a real psychic instead of a dishonest little worm, you wouldn't need to open the door to see what I've done to your lovely wife and child.
And he says, this is what you have done, and this is how I've reacted.
I'm sending a very strong message to Patrick Jane that I'm just not like any serial killer. I'm really going to teach you a lesson for demonizing me on television.
True demonic evil burns like fire. It burns with a terrible, cold, dark flame.
These were reaction crimes, if you want, by Red John, but they were very different types of reaction crimes. One of them was the reactions to himself. When people attacked him, he killed 2 of the film students.
If there's one thing I can't tolerate, it's cheap imitations of my work.
And I think he reiterated that in the case of Emma Plaskett, where he painted her toenails also, just to remind him what happened to his wife. So just to, put that back in his head again, what, the severity of what took place. As he moves along, he's integrating more people into his system. And the more people know about what he does, now he finds it necessary to eliminate them.
What Red John is doing almost seems superhuman. I mean, his ability to control people, his ability to kill people in the police department, and the scene where Patrick Jane actually meets Red John, where he's wrapped up in saran wrap, and Red John appears as the Grim Reaper with this grotesque mask in a medieval sort of thing. As I looked at the whole case, I saw it a little bit differently, to the extent that perhaps Red John is Patrick Jane, in a sense, in terms of his fantasy life or his delusions.
I fantasized about the idea that Patrick Jane is such a narcissist that he's created this whole existence for himself, and he's given himself a position in life to seek revenge against a crime that he's committed, to self-perpetuating cycle that he's created. And he is a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde character.
I only say this and exclude that as a possibility just because I think it would be cheating the audience to chase this guy all this time and then reveal that it's in fact, if the end of Moby Dick was that Captain Ahab is the great white whale, you would feel cheated of a good harpooning, wouldn't you? Same thing here.
Well, the relationship between Red John and Patrick Jane is very, very complex and can be viewed at a number of different levels.
What they have in common is a kind of extreme sense of personal honor, of personal agency, of individualism.
Red John is smart, very organized, very planned, very competitive, and now he's got an archenemy, Patrick Jane, who is as smart as he is, and there's a lot of competition here.
Hello?
And so another thing that we're seeing consistently throughout all of these crimes is narcissism.
He even tells him as if he's a student, you know, you're doing a good job or keep up the good work. It's very important for Red John to display, particularly to Patrick Jane, how powerful he is, how omnipotent he is.
I almost forgot. Christina would want me to send her love.
Red John thinks of Patrick Jane as a worthy critic of the drama that Red John is creating. He needs and wants that attention.
He doesn't want to kill Patrick Jane. Red John wants to keep him alive. He wants to keep the fight going on, demonstrating over and over and over that he's one step ahead, he's smarter, and that Patrick Jane, no matter what he does, will never solve this series of crimes.
Real tight.
If asked, he would probably say it's a weakness, that he's developed a fondness and a kind of addiction almost to having someone like Jane, someone intelligent and perceptive, watching him.
Red John is now trying to outsmart Patrick Jane. In fact, this is very common among serial killers.
They would also try to get close to the police. They would look for locations where police frequent bars to overhear what they speak about and so forth.
In that sense, it's a symbiotic relationship between cops and criminals. They need each other.
Red John, if you're listening to us now, I urge you to reach out and get help. You can change.
Things are getting more and more complex. He's evolving. He's, again, trying to stay one step ahead of the game. He's bound to escalate, but escalate in such a way that it becomes big headlines.
And I believe from his initial homicides that he started with, he, achieved a certain rush within himself. And as he goes along, he apparently seems to have to commit more murders and so forth to try to recreate that rush in himself.
He's on a trajectory of one-upsmanship, and it could very well be that a lot more people will be killed before he's caught.
The profiler's take on Red John, I thought, was very accurate. They mapped out a trajectory that I think is probably true of a lot of serial killers. They start out small, and as they get better at what they're doing and they start to enjoy it more and they realize, oh, I'm getting away with this, they get confident and maybe even a little arrogant.
Red John is feeding off that as well and saying, well, let me perform even more.
And I also agree that the end, that escalates to such a point that it just becomes completely out of control.
At the end of the day, Red John is a performer. Every performer needs an audience.
Do you know who I am?
Yes.
That's the ultimate message to him, that I'm really smarter than you, and if you don't do something, I'm going to keep going on and on.
These things usually end poorly, and but to have more killings involved and to escalate the elaborate nature of the killing or the more extraordinary nature of the killing is probably what we're in for.
Red John is walking a tightrope where his desire for recognition and his desire to demonstrate his prowess is in constant conflict with his desire not to get caught. And eventually he'll make a mistake and we'll catch him, but not yet.